Here we go, children. 7:02. It's November 23rd, 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, 3D Politics once again live on Facebook. Tommy McKay, your fine host, your verbal Viking, David Van from Sooner Politics, and David Oldham from constitutionalgrounds.com. Here we go, kids, with another exciting edition of 3D Politics, where you can only find this flavor right here every Monday, 7 p.m. on Facebook, Politics Live. Once again, Tommy McKay right here from Facebook and Twitter, 3D Politics Live, your verbal Viking. I've got David Van from SoonerPolitics.org, everything state-oriented, and you can find it all there, plus, and constitutionalgrounds.com, David Oldham for all things constitutional. Boys, there's been a lot of things going on. I know we're going to talk about a judge here denying bar owners locally, and Van's got a story about a Pennsylvania judge barring rights of poll workers. And Oldham, I've got Tommy's tirade is all for you tonight. The punchline, once we get through it, oh no, believe me, we're going to have to swag through it. But once we get there, the punchline's all for you. This is the one. Remember, I asked you for help on how to debate these guys on Twitter, and so you helped me with a couple of arguments, and so it's a delicious moment that'll happen. Let me just tune this in. So to get started real quickly, because this guy I think needs our help. This is a KFAQ story from November 19th, 2020. A judge denies bar owners' request to block state-mandated closing time. Also, Oldham, we want to talk a little bit about what's the guy's name? They got the story, the legal firm that's helping people with the mandate that we just forwarded the message.
Oh. Bannock.
Bannock, yeah, thank you.
Bannock law firm.
Frank Bannock.
Frank Bannock, thank you. But
Right.
This is another story where somebody needs some help. So a judge denied a request for emergency injunction against Governor Kevin Stitt's order for bar and restaurants to close at 11 p.m. This guy, Jeff Rogers, owns Friends, Cowboy, Bloom, and Pink Parrot. And he says, we just want to be fair for everyone. But apparently he and some bar owners filed a complaint, have a plan to file a motion for a temporary restraining order. But apparently that's not working to their favor. What do you guys know about it?
Well, I'll tell you, sometimes the judges require, and our Supreme Court requires, that you show that you suffered a loss before they will give you standing.
Yeah.
And this is a problem because, I mean, using that same logic, should we wait until we're dead in order to file for injunction to save your life? I mean, it's really crazy. Now, Frank and I were talking quite a bit on Tuesday.
Frank Bannock from Bannock Law Firm. That's what I was trying to remember. Thank you.
That's right. And Frank says Governor Stitt is being very coy about this. That, as best Frank can understand, he's using an emergency management act, which is written for natural and man-made disasters, such as a tornado or a nuclear power plant blowing up or something like that, when we have a law that's specifically for catastrophic health emergencies, which he did invoke last April. And so it's this shell game going on. And I can't tell you just how disappointed I am with Governor Stitt in what this is tyranny. This is martial law. That's essentially what he's declared, because by invoking this act, there is no expiration on his special powers and there's no legislative oversight on these powers. So this is a serious, serious problem.
Yeah, it really is. Oldham, what do you got?
Well, you know, the real problem here is that every single one of us who is underneath the governor has standing. whether you have been hurt or not. I mean, if all that happens to you is you're turned away, you've been harmed because you didn't get what you wanted, and that's not enough for most courts. And was that the argument that the judge made, that they just didn't have standing? I mean, I don't know how that could be, because
well, the emergency injunction was denied.
Okay, and he's going to let the harm come, and then allow them to bring suit. Here's the problem: is that it's on its face unconstitutional. So facially, they had standing.
In what way? In what way is it unconstitutional?
Oh, well, it's unconstitutional because he has no authority over time and dictating time. He has no authority to dictate COVID can't attack you until after 11 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm just asking you to cite a constitutional clause which this violates.
Well, again, the clause is the 5th and 14th Amendments in Article 2, Section 7 of the Oklahoma Constitution, that all say equally, identically, that no person should be deprived of liberty without due process of law. There's no due process. The other thing is that when you circumvent due process and create such a law legislatively, you create what is called a bill of attainder, and that is specifically forbidden all governments in the United States. So, I mean, specifically, the federal and state and subdivisions of the state government. In R1.
If I could, Oldham, taking actions to quarantine is not something new. It's actually something that was more prevalent back before we had antibiotics and a lot of the other treatments we had. But the difference then was when you knew a home had a person with an illness, contagious disease, you went before a judge, and the judge ordered that nobody comes and goes from that property while that disease is a threat. But again, you're armed with actual knowledge of specific people who actually have the disease.
It's a case by case, as opposed to this blanket mandate, which Oldham's always raging against.
Correct.
The difference may be right there, is that if you got a family that's spreading disease, you got a case. But if you just say, well, you know what, somebody might spread something, let's just blanket mandate everybody. It's the same thing that we fall for on this sobriety checkpoints, where like everybody's guilty till you pass through the annual exam. It's absolutely ridiculousness.
Well, take driver's licenses to begin with. Why do I need a driver's license?
Oh my gosh.
You're assuming that I can't drive.
That was a preemptive strike against Oldham.
I'm sorry.
No, I love it. Hey, guys, to take this just on an aside, but I mean, kind of keeping it in the same vein. Broken Arrow has resisted the mask mandates here locally, and they resisted it last Tuesday. And I went and spoke at their city council meeting along with Lori and
Thank
Rhonda.
you very much.
And so we spoke, and they decided to hold a very early meeting. They started at 5 o'clock.
Yep.
And you don't get on the speaking schedule if you're not there before the meeting. And I couldn't get there before 5 o'clock, right?
If you're a working person.
So I didn't get to speak. But you guys would be really encouraged at the people who are coming out, because their resolution was going to encourage businesses to force mass use in their business.
Yes.
So they want the city to encourage that. In other words, do the Biden thing. He's not going to do it, but he's going to get everybody else to do it. Well, the city's not going to do it, but they're going to get the business owners to do it, and then encourage them to call the cops if you don't comply. And
you guys remember, as old guys, do you remember peer pressure? Remember, peer pressure used to be a bad thing, but now peer pressure is a good thing, isn't it? That's kind of amazing.
But here's the thing you guys are going to like. you should see how many Broken Arrow citizens showed up. And the entire place is not socially distanced, and there's virtually no masks in the place. There are very few, and there's a couple kids that were there and wanted masks, and we're pushing for masks on the left. But,
those freaks on the
people
edge
are coming out of the woodwork, and they're making fabulous points. Everything that we're talking about here, quite frankly, the judge in this case had every duty to recognize and didn't. So I don't know which judge ruled on this for these poor business owners, but this judge needs to be set aside. He's disqualified from office as far as I'm concerned. He violated his rule.
And Tom, here's another problem with the Governor Stitt's order is not just the political, the constitutional, the statutory problems, but just on the face of it, it's nonsense. Why would you create a rush hour? Why would you create a certain hours?
That's one of the best arguments. Yeah.
Funnel everybody in so they all have to get in close.
We're going to save you sardines. We need you to pack her in.
Social distancing happens in two ways. There, I'm off camera here. It happens in space and it happens in time. So by spreading out your customer base over longer business hours, you give everybody more space.
Which was my suggestion. If you're going to go by their ridiculous logic, they should, by mandate, force all businesses to stay open 24/7.
There you go.
That way they spread their people out all night long.
You remember how we did a tax-free weekend for back to school there for that weekend? I think we should omit sales tax collections after midnight just to encourage people to do more of their business after midnight.
I like
it. There you go. See, the government can do certain things to encourage, and what do we call that? Social engineering. How about that, Oldham?
Yeah, let's do a couple of those. I'll have 2 social engineerings and 1 Dr. Pepper.
The only thing is that's not equal treatment under the law.
No, it isn't. I'm throwing their own rationale right back at them.
Which is irrational.
Yeah. But you know, it's just if government would get out of the way. I mean, everybody's worried. It's like, oh, we don't have a hospital. Oh, we got our citizens are supposedly, loading down Tulsa Hospital. Well, if that's the case, then that's the state's problem because the state forbade the various cities from being able to make a hospital.
And they did that way back at the founding of our state.
I want to try to get Jeff Rogers, the owner of Friends, Cowboy, Bloom, and Pink Parrot on. And I just want to reset the business here. Ladies and gentlemen, you are joined right now with David Oldham from constitutionalgrounds.com and David Vann from soonerpolitics.org, all things state from Sooner Politics, all things constitutional from constitutionalgrounds.com. Tommy McKay here, your verbal Viking conversational plunderer of conversation. Just knocking over all those little icons that keep us from talking. Listen, we got to get that Jeff Rogers guys on. I want to move forward into my Tommy's tirades because otherwise, see, I've been waiting all the way since last week, Oldham. You were frivolously enjoying your life. We were all so happy for you. And last week, I was really polite, which is rare for a Viking. And so, so here is Tommy's tirades. The Tommy's Twitter tirades. Oldham, you help me with this argument. I'm trying to share this. If I've got it here. Well, sure, that worked just fine.
I can tell it's a very passionate argument here because you can't find your notes. You forgot what it was. You know
what I did. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there and see if I can fix this. Now, supposedly you guys are still seeing me. Is that correct?
I am.
That's correct.
I am.
Yeah. All right. Now I'm zipping over here to the notifications. I had this all set up earlier.
Hey, Can I
But
give a
it's-
I
little
do that
while
all
you're
the
looking,
time.
Tom?
Yeah,
While you're looking that up, I had just a little tidbit more.
please.
Frank Urbanik said, if you look at the order is not for restaurants and taverns to shut down at 11. The order is for them to quit serving food and drink at 11. In other words, your typical dance hall where they're out there bumping and grinding on the dance floor, as long as they order up all the drinks they think they and their buddies who are going to come in after midnight are going to need, they just got to get all their orders in before 11. So when they say shut down, that's the media being lazy and not doing their homework. It just says quit serving food and drink at 11.
So here we go with Tommy's tantric tweets, and I hope you guys can see this. It looks like it's so the mask. Channel 8 says tweets a story about the mask mandate. Okay. In Jinx, and so I just reply simply that they're all a bunch of sheep, and I put the sheep message up there, right? And then of course they're just as polite as I am, and they call me a moron, you know. And so I realize they think I'm a moron, so I say it's always entertaining to listen to a progressive humanist attempt to push rule utilitarianism from an anti-realist position while simultaneously demanding virtue ethics behavior from everyone else. So they all look that up. And then later, this guy says, what's entertaining is to watch people like me, he's talking about, call others sheep for following science, when true sheep, oh my God, the double negatives are just going wild. When true sheep are people like me, who, like yourself, he's talking about me, who refuse to wear a mask because he thinks I follow Fox and Facebook memes. And I'm like, geez, wow. Stick with me, Oldham. This is the punchline's all for you, Oldham. You can pretend when we get there. Science, I say. IFR. You guys know what IFR is? David?
No.
See,
No.
I'm way ahead of you. That's infection fatality rate.
Okay.
That is, if you're
Okay.
infected, the concept that you'll die once you get infected. So the infection fatality rate for COVID-19 is less than 1% for those under 60 age. If you're less than 60, it's less than 1% that you'll die from getting it. Okay.
Got an update for you
right.
today in Sooner Politics. I wrote an article. The overall death rate for those with confirmed COVID cases in Oklahoma, everybody,
Yes,
is less than 1%. That's when you even include the
80-year-olds
with, heart problems.
Now,
It's
David,
still,
this is my tirade.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, that's true. What you said is true, but we'll never get done with this. So here it is, because it's all about Oldham. This is all about Oldham. So also, furthermore, like Van just pointed out, less than 1% for those age 60 and everybody, less than 2%. So like but what about the vulnerable? Your grandma. Okay, if you're over 60, less than 2%. Okay, and then I throw a little jab at him. It appears that my opponents drop their moral relativism as a non-cognitivist where masks are concerned faster than Freddie Mercury drops to his knees to intubate another penis. But that's just a joke.
Boom.
Then Dr. Preston Bobo. Now, when a guy chimes in as a doctor on a COVID thing, what do you immediately think? Well, he's a doctor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the doctor says to me, do you have a source for my numbers? Because I just told him 1%
Sure.
and 2% less. And regardless, he says, COVID-19 is still the leading cause of death, blah, blah, blah. At least 1 million, 1,000 billion people have died. And then he just tops it off with mass saves lives. Drive through, please. So then I say totalitarian science control, totalitarian style control is not science, and wearing a mask cannot guarantee protection from the viral infection. Then I give him my source, which is Forbes from September 26, 2020. What is the death rate, et cetera. And surprise, surprise, Dr. Bobo comes back and says, that study is deeply flawed. Well, how did I? Of course he says. And now, Oldham, you're going to love this. He starts by saying wearing a seat belt. cannot go. So the seat, once you force the virus to wear a mask and a seatbelt. So anyway, wearing a seatbelt cannot guarantee protection, but it helps mitigate the effects. You know what? If you shut up, it will also mitigate the effects, Dr. Bobo. Anyway, he says the study's deeply flawed. He talks about the CFR. You know what the CFR is? No, that's the case fatality rate is about 4%. Well, by definition, I know.
What's the difference between case fatality rate and infection fatality rate?
Well, the case fatality rate has to do with once you are listed as a case, now we're recalculating all our what we call 100% by not adding it to everybody who got infected but just people who are now a case in the hospital. So if you're already in the ICU, now you're part of the IFC. And I'm sure I probably messed that up to some degree of lack of accuracy. But anyway, I says to him, knowing he would say my source was, somehow flawed, I says to him, your analysis of my study is deeply flawed and relies heavily on speculative data, which is what they always say. And and he admitted in his last tweet, you don't know what the IFR is yet, so there is no justification for his panic, and I'm accusing him of panic. And CFR should by definition be higher than the IFR. And how did I know he would doubt my source? And he never delivers his source. He says, Dr. Preston Bobo, I'm not panicking, here's my source. Now here's the problem. He says he's a doctor, and now he doesn't even know what a source is. I'm not panicking.
He's his own source.
He says, I'm not panicking. Here's my source. Number of people have recovered or died from COVID. Of those, number have died. 3.6%. I don't see a source there, ladies and gentlemen. That's just numbers, and a percentage. Cases lead to hospitalizations. So clearly, Dr. Bobo has no idea what a source is. But then he changes the subject, Dr. Bobo. And here's a study on leading cause of mortality, which isn't what we were talking about. I like lingerie, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the leading cause of mortality. So then I went to his study and I says the article, I just printed a thing from his article that says it's a preprint, it's not peer reviewed. And then he comes back like look, he's trying to be a smartass when I'm the king of smartasses. I was trained by the best there is. So then he says, I know what a preprint is. It means this is the cutting edge research. Can you point out how their maths are flawed? Remember when I used to worry about milks? The plural of milks? This is ridiculous. Their maths. This guy, he's the guy at school, in elementary school, that says, can I have both your milks? So he's worried about the numbers, okay? But I'm not even arguing about whatever the case, the leading cause of mortality, okay? Now, Oldham, we're getting there, okay? Because all in another thread that I spared you from, I kept telling him, you want to use force to do this, and you want to use force to do that, and you want to use force to try to make this happen. You want to use government force against our neighbors. And he kept saying, no. Okay, so now I said, look, your argument has no peer review. And now here's where Oldham comes in. I said, government is allowed to regulate our privilege of driving. Government is not allowed to prohibit our freedom of movement towards our pursuit of happiness while outside simply for not wearing a mask in defiance of forced participation of a fashion suggestion. And of course, I put my borders of the world that lists all the different types of ladies' panties because I told you I like lingerie. So Preston Bobo comes in and he says, okay, well then find fault with the clam. Their math. He's back to the math. The government is allowed to regulate commerce, he says. Remember, Oldham, I asked you about the Commerce Clause. They can say in order to participate in commerce, you must wear a mask, clothes, and vaccines. So then Oldham helped me out. I said a mask mandate is a blanket deprivation of liberty based on the idea of an unconstitutional and perverse use of the Commerce Clause. You deprive us of our freedom and liberty according to a violation of the Fifth Amendment. Cannot be deprived of our liberty without due process, Van, which is what you were talking about, where I still need you to due process includes showing and validating damages, which means the damages have to happen. We'll get back to that. So here comes Preston. Dr. Preston Bobo, everything I say is wrong. Isn't that amazing? Everything in my tweet is wrong. I tell him you're panicking and you're clutch your pearls. And then I have my cute little meme that nobody else has because I got that alone. Because he's a child living in a little wonderland of stupidity. Okay, and then Preston Bobo says no one is panicking, and then now the feminist that I grew up with to train me. Are you projecting? Are you kidding me? Here's this guy wants to play psychology. I thought he was a doctor. Okay. So I said, now that you want to play the projection thing, I asked him, so you've lost the professional medical advisor position and you're on to the I know you are, but what I am argument. I posted science and logic and you're projecting, you just emojis and memes. You like masks, wear one. You like gay marriage, have one. Okay. He says, now I've pressed him. I'm not a medical professional. Oh, well, I'm sorry, you have a DR period right in front of your clown name, Bobo. My God, I'm not a medical professional. I'm a chemist. Oh, he's a chemist. And then he claims he says, Tom, you seem to be projecting. Isn't
now he's a psychiatrist.
Yeah. So he says, I'm saying, and now he says, no one is talking about gay marriage, but you homophobe. I like masks so much I want to require them everywhere. So I tells him, I promise, Oldham, we're almost done. You are a citizen tyrant trying to attempt control of other individuals by dictate of government force. You are scared and you're panicked. And your ethic of threat is consequentialism backed up by the coercion of your rule utilitarianism as a fascist. You are projecting communism. And he says, none of those things are true. God, I have children, and I've already argued with them. No force. Here we go. No force, he says. You either wear a mask or you refuse service. No force has to be involved. I'm not scared. I'm a hazmat chemist who works with things that are much more dangerous than me. Nothing's more dangerous than me. My ethics are saving the most lives. And also, I don't do memes, projection. So I said, your self-awareness is not required to recognize actions as dictatorial. You will welcome force at the first refusal to comply. Either wear a mask or you refuse service, like a racist soda jerk from 1950s. You fear people acting freely. Saving lives is an action, not an ethics system. Once again, this guy doesn't even know how to define words. Nope, says Dr. Bobo. No fear here, just like how a bar can refuse service to someone who has drink too much, or how a business can refuse to someone not wearing pants. That isn't force. It's only the person exercising force as, listen to this, that is the only person exercising force would be the anti-masker. That is, me not complying is considered force. And I said, you will welcome government force against businesses who do not comply with your dictate. You will likely encourage snitching to government officials and neighbors and commercial entities that refuse your desired behavior. You are a community tyrant, Dr. Bobo, living in fear of free people. And what does he say? No, just pull their business licenses.
There we go.
Oldham, what have you told us for a million effing years longer than this bit about licenses?
Yeah.
Licenses. No force, just pull their license.
Just some agency will make up a rule and pull their license, and too bad.
And so I say.
And if they,
now,
go ahead.
Yeah, now you admit your desire for the use of forced compliance. Pulling business license is the continued mentality of a tyrant. You prefer rule by force of government coercion. You live in fear of those you cannot control.
Bingo.
That's true. Good job.
There we go.
More from 3D politics as we go. If you've suffered that entire rant, that was one of Tommy's Twitter tirades backed up by Oldham's brilliance.
What's your Twitter handle?
That's Tommy McKay at Tom E. McKay on Twitter. Thank you. And at Tommy McKay. And I'm sitting here with David Oldham, Constitutional Grounds, and David Van from SoonerPolitics.org. So guys, that was my big tirade. But I love how licenses work, and they don't mention them until the very last moment of force.
Yeah. Two things stand out to me. One, it totally left everybody. The government does not have the ability, federal government, to control commerce. What word's missing there, Oldham? Interstate commerce.
Well, I don't know what. Well, yes, and I think he probably meant that, but
no,
the point
he didn't.
is that
he basically
well,
said
okay,
the government
I'm
can
going to give him the
control all commerce. All commerce.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that because government has a place in regulating commerce, but they
He
always
specifically
take it too far.
talked about the federal government.
Yeah, this is like me talking about
Yeah,
colloquial definitions when I was properly corrected about legal definitions. So as
Yeah.
a colloquial moron out there, he says government. He's not smart enough to know there's differences between state and local. He's a chemist.
He was
Christ's
referring
sake.
to the federal government when he said it.
Yeah. Because
Well,
my
that's
argument
fine.
was based in that.
I wasn't paying that close attention.
No, the whole argument
Well,
was based in the commerce clause is where we started getting tangled. Was he
Which
wanted to
is
say
federal. Yeah.
That was well, and the Commerce Clause is federal. We have similar in the state
Right.
in our state constitution.
right?
But the real thing is that the government does not have the right to deprive a business owner, therefore a business, of their liberty to run their business as they see fit without
Okay.
due process.
Which
Which is what they all want to do which is what licensing starts with, is a blanket deprivation of liberty. No, you can't. It is illegal until you come down and supplicate yourself to us. Then we might be kind enough to let you go ahead and participate.
Yeah.
And because we do this to everybody, it's equal protection.
right.
So here's the thing.
That's literally their argument.
Tom, I try to encourage all of my fellow patriots here who are standing up for liberty on this. It's not about the science of whether a mask works. It's about who has the authority to decide whether a mask works for me.
It's risk assessment, which literally ties into wages, which literally ties in to fruits of labor. If you can assess my risk for me, you are separating me from my fruits of labor.
Yeah.
I get to decide how much risk I'm going to take. That is my wage definement.
Yes.
The minute you tell me you're going to assess my risks, you're giving me an allowance and a ceiling.
Yeah.
This is total bull crap.
The former president of Tulsa.
Sorry.
No,
I already did my tirade.
The former president of Tulsa Republican Men's Club, Darren Gans, good friend of mine. He's probably going to be our next county Republican chair. He was talking to me today, and we kind of came down to this whole thing of, if you look at the Oklahoma Department of Health, they created this motto, the Board of Health did. It is their job, they said, to protect the health of Oklahomans. Here's the problem with that. If you assume that they have the responsibility to do that, then implicit is they have the authority to make our decisions for what's good for our health. Right. That's a problem. The same thing is true in law enforcement, because when they say my job is to serve and protect me from whom? If you're taking away my liberties as law enforcement, you're not protecting me, you know? And so it really comes down to, and Oldham, you're going to love this one. As I finished my last job tonight, the couple there, you know, was asking how I'm doing, are you healthy and everything? And they said, stay safe, you know, it's right. And I responded back to them, stay free, you know.
Freedom over safety, baby.
Because, you know, what did Jefferson say? He said, those who would trade essential liberties for temporary security deserve neither. Neither.
Yeah.
And so the government is setting it up. They're saying, to protect your safety, we're taking away your liberty. We are deciding it for you. For you.
This is go ahead.
No, that was my
similar. This is similar to the classic argument between a man and wife, between multitasking and singular operation. Okay, and the argument from the male side to defeat the woman is you cannot multitask until you've identified each individual task. There's no such thing as multitasking. Even a computer does one calculation at a time. It just does it damn quickly. So this idea of multitasking is a damn lie. You do one thing at a time. And so you tell me how I was going to tie that in.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to I don't know how to tie that in. What were we talking about? It has to do.
Drink.
It has to do with them trying to push multiple facets of argument down our throats by attacking the licensing. So what they say is it's a blanket statement. They press the businesses. This is why they won't come out and just force businesses, because the pressure needs, the businesses are in between both sides of the argument.
Yeah.
I lost my point on that.
But let me tell you what happened to me. Was just last Wednesday night. I'm down at my soccer place where I play indoor soccer, and I go up to buy a pitcher of beer for a friend of mine and myself to share. They won't serve me. They will not serve me because I am not wearing the face diaper. And I know these people. I know them well. I've been customers of theirs for, 10 years almost. And I know that they have received pressure through the licensing agencies, either the health department and their food license, or the alcohol board and their alcohol license, that they are receiving this pressure. They have to perform this way lest they be caught.
Yeah.
And that's what I faced. And so I actually had to hand my money to a gal standing next to me, ask her to get the pitcher and turn around and hand it to me, all to play the game.
You did it like a 17-year-old. That's good. Get someone to buy the beer for you.
Yes. Because I didn't have a face diaper, because I don't carry those around. Yeah. So, and I picked up face diaper today. There's a lady in Broken Arrow, a friend of mine on Facebook. Been friends for years. We've never met in real life, and I didn't get a chance because I had to run out of there before they ended. But she all she did was call it a face diaper.
Right.
No, I'm going to use that.
And David, we've talked about this several times. If businesses want to say, let's say you can't go to Eskimo Joe's and wear crimson and cream, you got to wear orange and black, right? They have a right to do that, but they're going to suffer consequences by making bad decisions. So yesterday, for the first time all season, I decided to watch some NFL football. You know what's missing? You can't find anything about Black Lives Matter. They went all political on us back in September and into October, and they paid millions of dollars to get political. And they realized they shouldn't be doing that. Thank God, economic pressures in the marketplace sometimes are the best way to address these things.
Yeah, they are. The real thing is,
go ahead.
The real thing is that this is a distinction that we all have to make. Whether or not somebody is actually has a belief for their business that they want to run their business a certain way, and contrast that with those who are being forced to comply because of their licenses, because that's what the government does. In fact, that's again what the Broken Arrow resolution was going to do, was encourage businesses and then apply licensure pressure to have these businesses declare that they are mask friendly and force masks.
If I could bounce off that, it's important that all citizens understand what the actual government policy is on things, so that when a business does, which they often do, especially the big corporate, big box stores, is they will claim that their hands are tied. It is government policy that is driving them, when it's not. They just want to make the government the bad guy so that you won't take it out on them, economically. You got to know these things, folks. You just have to.
Right.
You know?
But usually and especially the big guys. I don't know if you've ever been in the back rooms of some of these big stores where they have all their licenses hung up. And even some of the small ones, like a Family Dollar or a Dollar General,
Mhm.
they have myriad licenses. I mean, they're carrying dozen licenses for a little store like a Dollar General.
Mhm.
Walmart, even more. They're carrying a couple dozen or more licenses
Sure.
just to be in business. And every single one of them is putting pressure on them in one way or another. So they have an immense amount of pressure that we're not seeing, and we need to start making ourselves aware of these.
Yeah, this is clearly an attack on capitalism because all the pressure's on the business. Not only is it the pressure from the government down to the business, but from the people up to the business. So when you go to your little donut shop, even though they're not a chain, they have a thing on their door that says, we require masks. Do they really? No. I mean, I'm saying not necessarily. What they know is that to continue to have a license to operate, they have to have a plan that they submit to the government, the city government, to maintain their license.
Especially if they have health department licensing. If they're a food handling businesses, then what's happened is the Nazis down there at the county health department start saying, you know, here's all the things you have to comply with now if you want to reopen, you know, and listen, the health department, it's been said many times, including on the Capitol floor of both chambers, the health department can shut any business down anytime they want. The rules are written in such a way that they can just find a way to say you're not in compliance and they can shut you down. That's how powerful that department is, and it needs to be reined in.
Yeah, I've said it before on this show. If anybody who's ever run or worked in the kitchen of a restaurant knows that the Tulsa Health Department is the most unruly group of Nazis you've ever met.
Sure they are.
They don't have any idea of logic or reason. All they know is like, you've got to keep those rocks clean. Well, those are rocks. You know, they're display rocks. You know? You have to cover them in laminate.
And I want to say this. It took me a while to figure this out. You learn not to listen to the corporate news media. And I'm talking in Oklahoma here, whether it's print or TV or radio, because they will give you misinformation. I don't know how many times over the last week they've talked about Governor Stitt ordering all restaurants and bars to close at 11 p.m. And that's not what he said. The same thing was true way back in April with all those emergency measures. And I finally got around to reading them, and they were all recommendations. There were a couple of things that were mandates, but most of them, Stitt was actually, you know, and it seemed like he was willing to let the misinformation get out there just to get all the leftist Nazis off his back.
He's got to be under a lot of pressure. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard David Van from SoonerPolitics.org, and you're joining us with David Oldham from ConstitutionalGrounds.com. I'm Tommy McKay right here, your Verbal Viking 3D Politics every Monday night on Facebook Live. Oldham, go on.
Well, I was going to say that the other thing that you've got to remember is even Stitt has an agenda that he wants to see happen. So he's hoping that we get the numbers down and stuff like that. And they frankly don't mind that lies get spread about what they're doing, because they can always go back and say, no, it was all recommendation. I had nothing to do with it. Just so long as ultimately they get what they want. And that's, you know, the numbers down for whatever they're, you know, to relieve the pressure. And it's the same thing with these mandates. The city mandates are ridiculous. Nobody's going to bother with them. But the thing is, there's enough people who do that hopefully it'll affect things and you know, and get the numbers down and get people off their backs. So
I wanted to say something. Oldham, you and I go back to 2012 presidential campaign. I know you're a big Ron Paul supporter, and, you're dealing with us religious right, us Santorum people. And it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to see what's happening here. If you go out to Nevada, you notice how the legislature and all the government leaders in it, they were just fine about making it so that all the casinos could get back open, because they gave them a formula of how many people in the building per square foot. But then they told all the churches, 50, you get 50 people. Doesn't matter if you're a big arena, we're saying a one size fit all. If you're going to be a little chapel, you get 50. If you're going to be a great big BOK center, you still only get 50. And the problem was they seemed to show more hostility towards churches and faith communities than the gambling and the striptease and all of those other things.
sure.
So I'm saying that to say this. Now we got the converse. Okay, the Stitt family are Pentecostal. They're members of the Assemblies of God. I don't know if they would call themselves fundamentalist, but here's the thing. Are they shutting down churches? No, they're shutting down bars and restaurants that stay open late. So, liberty can be attacked from either the left or right, from the religious busybodies, as C.S. Lewis called them, or the godless tyrants. Either side.
See, that was that multitasking point I was trying to bring. That's going to drive me crazy. When I watch the show, I'll figure it out. Ben, you had something about a Pennsylvania judge that rules against poll watchers' rights. Tell us.
Yes. Okay. So.
Can you believe that?
Huh?
I said, can you believe it?
Okay.
It's the law. He ruled against the law.
Hey, we were talking about strip clubs, and now it's poll watchers are in trouble. Go ahead.
Okay, so we got these poll watchers. Now, this is an Oklahoma law. We don't have this deal, but maybe you can say we don't need it like they do in Philadelphia. But as a way to provide, accountability to make sure everybody's doing this right, in many states, they allowed for, people to sign up to be poll watchers. And what would happen there is, like, the Republican Party, Democrat Party would want to make sure that they have their people at every polling place. And the law is very specific that those poll watchers get to observe everything. Now, they shouldn't be tying up or slowing things down, but be watching everything. So what happened in Philadelphia is you'd have these tyrants, the precinct election judges, basically either not letting them in or saying, you got to stand way back there. Or in one case like this with the judge, they said, no, you got to be socially distanced. So you got to be 6 to 8 feet behind the person who's processing all these ballots. Now, keep in mind, it's tiny, tiny mice type. It's meant to be read right in front of your face. And so this judge, who seems to have no respect for other state authorities, because keep in mind, once you're certified to be a poll watcher, you are de facto state agent. You are licensed by the state. You are deputized, if you will, to make sure. So, and you have those certifications, those protections in place. But the judge doesn't seem to want to respect that. And so I've got a novel way of helping to inform and reform this judge. It's simply this: attorneys, next time you bring your affidavits to the court to present to the judge, hold up the affidavit 8 feet away and give him 2 seconds to read it and act on it. Okay? If he says, no, you can't do that, you just say, well, that's what you're doing to the poll watchers. Or better yet, next time somebody comes in with a handgun and then the cops want to protect this judge's courtroom by doing metal detectors, say, no, you guys got to stay 8 feet away. Okay? Or thirdly, and this is the one that really gets, that judge is going to need to renew his driver's license at some time, including taking an eye test. So I would just say, hold up the ballot 8 feet away, give him 2 seconds, and have him recite the material on there. If he doesn't pass his eye test. the same standard needs to apply, period. Argue with me, Oldham.
Yeah, do it, Oldham.
Good enough suggestions. Slap the guy in jail.
Well, I mean, the point is made that if I am unable to get to the table to do my work,
Yeah,
then I can't do my work.
yeah.
And the idea that we let you in the room but not to your table, that still doesn't fix it. So,
well, how many votes are we talking? We're talking 800,000 or 900,000 votes in Philadelphia that supposedly came in, which sounds extremely high for the area. I mean, the numbers are just outrageous. We've heard of all sorts of. I mean, there's a whistleblower has come forward and come out in the public to testify that he was a postal worker who witnessed backdating of ballots.
right.
And we had the Republican poll watchers sent home saying they were done for the night. They will pick it up in the morning, come back in the morning. And then as soon as the Republicans all left, they went back to work and counted through the night, another 800,000 ballots, supposedly.
An actual pallet came in.
Yeah. Just pristine, like they just came off the press.
Yeah.
Perfectly
With
marked and everything else.
only Joe Biden's name. Only one race.
Not
on
even
all
any
of them.
down ballots. No down ballots or nothing. So
Well, I mean, the Democrats can rig an election a lot better than we can.
Yeah.
They're a lot better.
there's nothing to see here, so that's how it's done. But
this is
that's the beauty of Oklahoma is that we have by statute that Republicans and Democrats are to be on the poll team.
Yes.
So every single polling place automatically has watchers available. I mean, just by default, it happens. That's not the case in Pennsylvania. There, they actually have to get out and make sure that they get watchers on there because they're just, they will stack all Democrats. And what I noticed from talking with people out in that area and friends of mine who went through it, what they were doing was they were suppressing votes in Republican areas, and then they were doing the fraud in the Democrat areas. So they were making sure they got all the Democrat votes, and they were giving Republicans a hard time, and then maybe using the vote switching software especially in the Republican areas.
Yes. And Alan Dershowitz, the former Harvard law professor, said probably the strongest case is an equal protection case, 14th Amendment, that says everybody's rights must be equally protected here. But when you're in rural Pennsylvania and you're not afforded certain things that the people in Philadelphia are given, in other words, you have to follow the rules to the T. But in Pennsylvania, it doesn't matter if your signature doesn't match, or all kinds of things like that.
In Philly,
so,
yeah.
I wish this would apply in elementary school when you're ready with your homework, but nobody else has their homework ready, and the teacher's like, "Oh, you know what?"
Yeah.
They just gotta let it slide because everybody sucks except for you. You're ready to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of problems there. To be honest with you, and I think Dershowitz said it, and then tonight Dick Morris, of Bill Clinton fame, has said it. This may be something that gets sorted out more by the Congress than by the Supreme Court. Because at a certain point, Congress has to decide, is this a legitimate electoral college process? Because if it's not, then it falls on each state congressional delegation.
Oldham, what do you think about that?
Well, it does. The problem is I don't know where in the Constitution you have that Congress gets a say on that, because the electoral college delegations come from the various states. So what you would have to do is you would have to attack it in the states. You could attack it via the federal judiciary, but I don't see where Congress has any say on any
Oh, yeah.
determination. They only have the say in the count, in a witnessing the president of the Senate make the count of the Electoral College vote.
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard some people mention that, but it's like, okay, where do you find this
You know what?
authority
And let's
of
ask
Congress in the Constitution?
Let's ask the viewers. Viewers, chime in on this in the comments of this video. Give us that information, because I think that's something we should dig into for next week's show. Just what the process is going to be. I think we could all learn from this.
Well, I can tell you what the process is. The process is, first off, you have to have the votes certified in the various states.
Yeah.
I think what right now is slowing things up, because as to my knowledge, no state has certified yet.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
No, which is unusual. I find it unusual that even Oklahoma hasn't certified. But they may
no, I think
just
it was
not.
the swing states, the ones that I think Georgia was the first to try to certify.
Well, I don't know that California has certified.
I know Florida has. Florida certified over the
Have
weekend.
they? Okay,
Yes.
so more are certified. Okay, so here's the thing. First off, they have to have a certification. Once they have a certification, and there's no legal challenge to the certification, fraud, problems with the voting, illegal voting. Yes. Rules outside of the legislature creating them.
Recount,
like in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania just needs to be tossed. That entire state should not see a single electoral vote. And it's sad, because it just looks to be that corrupt.
Well, let's follow up on that. Hold on. Let's dig deeper into that, because Georgia is also one where if they can show enough tainted votes or questionable votes were counted that should not be counted, then all of a sudden the results are in dispute. When the results are in dispute, then what happens? And this all is because back after Abraham Lincoln, or sometime in there, they decided to move up inauguration from March to January. And this is part of a problem, because they wanted it to be a quick, new people come in and shorter the lame duck portion of it, So, I think if nobody gets 270, because there's certain states that we just are not accepting any electoral college votes from them, then I could see Congress saying, yeah, we should really, make sure that at
that point, the vote or the responsibility for the choice of president devolves to Congress. Okay, and
both houses.
The House chooses the president, the Senate chooses the vice president. So
that's what I understand. So I don't. Yeah, let's dig into that, because there's a couple of nuances there I want to find out, and I'd like to hear from some of our listeners, our viewers, to find out their thoughts on it.
Sure.
Tom, can we do that next week?
Yeah, I gotta say, we have a fantastic American system. We would have crumbled a long time ago if we didn't have a federation of states. If we were a nation state, we'd be screwed. There's a number of different ways that the founding fathers set it up. And thank God for the founding fathers that foresaw the corruption and the bull crap that's coming down. Van, yet another thing, the latest Oklahoma covered numbers, the covert numbers.
Yeah, good news. And I took it this morning, and actually, believe it or not, I use CNN as a source. Okay, CNN actually, they take their information from National Institutes of Health and Johns Hopkins.
If a liar says the truth, it's still the truth.
Yeah, I know it, but stubborn facts. But anyway, Oklahoma, as far as a death rate from people who are tested and confirmed having contracted the COVID virus, our death rate is probably the 12th best in the nation. We have less than 1% of people who tested and confirmed positive for COVID, less than 1% have died. And that's of all ages combined. So that includes the 85-year-olds with heart disease and diabetes. You put them all in there and you're still under 1%. That's a good thing. Oklahoma actually tests probably, well, twice the rate per capita that Texas does. We're not the biggest, but we're, one of the biggest on testing. So even with all of these tests and stuff, we're still coming out okay. We really are. So that's good news. And the health department and all the Nazis in the leftist media are not putting the good news out there. They're just putting the bad news.
Well, and again, G.T. Bynum from Tulsa continues to put the peer pressures on all these other entities. He pretended when he took office that he just wanted to be the mayor of Tulsa, kick the dirt, and gee whiz, guys, I just want to be Tulsa mayor like my old grandpappy did. But then it's like, oh man, I really want to shame the parents for letting their children play in the water. And then I want to really encourage all the other mayors of all the other little fiefdoms to crush down their public. It's just, it's a sickening attitude that he has. And also, when I argued the teenage curfew against the Tulsa City Council, when G.T. Bynum was a teenager, I was arguing against the Tulsa City Council against the teenage curfew. Now, these people from the city council, and see, that's the point where me and G.T. Bynum were on the same page, was when he was a 13-year-old and he didn't know why they had a teenage curfew. Now, I argued against the Tulsa City Council about a teenage curfew because when I was 17, I was paying FICA, all my federal state, and I didn't get off work at the Bowman Twin until after 11. And then we went down to the Rose Bowl. So I didn't think it was right for me to pay taxes and then not be allowed on the streets just because that I paid for, the streets I paid for, just because I was 17.
And Tom, you didn't get to vote either. That's taxation without representation.
And they included the inaccurate concept of a minor being any person from 3 years of age to my age is 17. So I was against the city council's concept of a curfew for teenagers. And when I went to study it, I stumbled across, just by looking at things in all caps, emergency clause. Now, I was looking for different information on the curfew, but I kept seeing the city council pass. This would be circa 1990s, mid-90s, 95. The city council kept passing all these things under an emergency clause. And so then I looked up, what is an emergency clause? Well, the simple fact is, if the city council passes something under an emergency clause, they don't have to wait any 90 days or 60 days or whatever. It just goes into effect immediately. So what I found out when I argued to the city council in 1995 or 96, whatever it was I asked them, why are you passing a municipal city's employees retirement fund under an emergency clause? They literally had a retirement fund being passed under an emergency clause. And I said, who has to retire so fast? I mean, God, you got to hurry up and retire? My God. So what I found out was they were passing any damn thing they wanted in the 90s, Tulsa City Council, under the emergency clause. And so right after I brought that up, they went in and they changed their font size. Instead of emergency clause real big, the emergency clause real small after that. And I don't even think they noticed it now. But the point is, G.T. Bynum was against the teenage curfew under the emergency clause, just like I was. But now he loves the curfew for restaurants. What a pig.
Wow.
What
well,
a
it's because
pig.
he promised Dr. Dart that Dr. Dart would get to control us.
Dr. Dart is an unelected bureaucratic puke.
But G.T. Bynum promised him, and a promise is a promise.
Well, Boy George promised stuff at the bathroom, too.
Okay, you guys are going to love what I'm about to tell you, because it is breaking news.
All right.
based on stuff that I was telling you earlier.
All right.
A Broken Arrow has refused to create a resolution of any kind at this point.
Yep.
So we in Broken Arrow are the only community in Tulsa County that has not come up with some ridiculous mandate or resolution.
Who married a rich woman who owns a house in Broken Arrow just so he could get out of Tulsa and live in Broken Arrow?
Oh my God. I literally don't know.
Boom!
Multitasking.
Oh,
hey,
man.
I want to give a shout out. Hey, Blake Barber's got a question. It's not really a question. It's a statement, but for Oldham. Blake, I appreciate you watching once again. You can't own your real estate, Blake says. You can't own your truck. He has a truck. You can't own your business. You only exist at the permission of government.
That's right.
Everybody agrees with Blake? Oh
yeah.
my God.
They license it to you.
No. Here's the thing. That's the big deception.
Yeah.
It's all a lie because that's not at all lawful, but that's how they've been running it. And we have got to start saying, no, that's a lie. You don't get to do that anymore. That's what it's all about. Just destroy the lie with the truth. It doesn't exist. That is not true.
Right.
Our property is our property.
Still have to
belong to the zoning commission or the planning commission or your city or anything else. They only get to say, look, you can't have your house falling in on your neighbors and harming them.
Van, what do you got?
And that is legit.
Okay. Now, last week, Tom, we talked a little bit about this, the Catastrophic Health Emergency Powers Act, which is what Stitt actually did enact last April when he finally did it right. It says that the agencies and the law enforcement cannot punish anybody for not keeping any of these rules if the legislature has not declared an emergency. It says, sections like 9 through 25 of this act, which includes all the special powers to make new rules and to make new laws without, the legislative process.
Right.
So again, the legislature, if they do not act, then all of these rules that they're threatening you with have no power. Let them take you to court. Seriously, folks, we got to fight this stuff.
So,
because
the way we fight it, though, is showing damages. We have to. Here's what I got to get. You guys got to get me over this hump. The concept I understand is that the way you bring it to court is you have to show damages.
Well, Tom, you make them take you to criminal court. Let them charge you with violations. Because I'm telling you, 99% of this is bluff. They won't do it. Remember when G.T. Bynum passed the mask mandate last summer? And the cops said, no, we're not going to enforce it. The cops know better than to do that. The cops said the only thing we're going to do is if a shop owner says you either wear the mask and all or wear orange or whatever their rules are, or you leave. And if you don't leave, then the cops come and charge you with trespass.
So once again, the pressure is on businesses from both sides. This is not the mask mandate is nothing but an attack on capitalism. It is capitalism versus socialism 101. And they are trying to attempt to take over the means of production any way they can, even if it's as simple as here's what hours you're open and how you have to run your business. And you got to have a piece of paper on the door that says you're complying, or otherwise you can't have your Oldham license that gets you in the door.
So much of this is bluff. And I'm going to use
so much crap. I can't believe it.
Yeah, but take our good friend Dean Davis, state representative. Remember, he gets pulled over and they're trying to tell him that he's going to be cited with additional trespasses if he doesn't voluntarily subject to a breathalyzer test. And every defense attorney I know says, do not do the breathalyzer test. Do not do it.
Well,
they can't make it stick.
They threaten, and then when it comes out in court is that he volunteered. And the point is, they have to you have to make them physically take it from you, because if you give in to the threats, they are going to lie about having threatened you, and then
Right.
and they're going to just leave it out, and you're
Right.
going to have granted them permission.
And again, you
And
take
nothing could be further from the truth.
look at Second Amendment issues. Rick Hubbard with Tim Harper, both of them, they made it conditions for him getting bailed out of jail. Was you give over all your guns to us, okay? And then they say, no, he voluntarily gave up his guns. You know, again, the constitutional right is against excessive bail. Giving up your Second Amendment is an excessive bail.
I tried to call him out. This is the same type of concept. I swear I'll bring this one together. G.T. Bynum was talking about we're out of, he said we're out of beds. We're out of bed space for the COVID. But when he was pressed at the press conference, it was like, well, actually we got enough beds. We don't have enough manpower. Oh, so you got enough beds, but you don't know. So here's where what you're talking about. The reality on the ground goes through the telephone game of the media, and the media pretends, oh my God, we're out of beds. But when you find out, we're not out of beds. We're not out of bed space. My God, we got thousands of beds. Oh, we don't have manpower. Why? Because socialism didn't prepare properly. We paid them the money to be in charge, and now they're telling us you have to ration the hospital better than we thought, because we didn't plan properly to have enough people here.
Yeah,
The public schools are like, we don't have any substitute teachers. Well, what the hell's wrong with you? You had 18 months to get ready.
They got enough nurses. They just don't have enough licensed nurses. Yeah. It's the license again.
And even on Memorial, you can't get a rabbit or a notary public anymore.
Yeah.
Remember on Memorial, there's rabbits and notary public. There you go. Oh, I'm from Tulsa. Hey, guys. Everybody's listening to 3D Politics every Monday night. And I got to say, we're working on a new concept. We're going to bring callers in. Blake Barber wants to be on the show just to talk. And we're working out a system where we're going to try to bring him in. I got another guy named Todd Watson. He wants to be on the show. But you don't get on 3D Politics just by wanting to. You got to pass all the hoops and jump through all the trouble.
Bring it.
Spots.
You got to bring it.
And you got to bring it. And we didn't put this thing together with no trouble over 2 years just to let anybody and their dog on. So unless your dog's cute, some of them will bring your dog on first.
I've got a cute dog now.
It's like Jim Rome says, you got to have a take and you got to not suck.
That's right. But I do. And these guys, we know from American politics that the brilliance lies in the populace. So just because we're leading the charge here on 3D Politics doesn't mean that there's not more brilliant brains out there to join us in the conversation.
Absolutely.
So we do want to figure out a way, and I'm working on it right now, where we'll push you through the Oklahoma Newsmakers channel as an audition and then bring you onto the 3D Politics to discuss you. And I'm working with that with 2 other people, Davids. But anything else before we get out of here, guys? I want to thank also David Oldham, David Van for showing up this evening.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yes, precinct caucuses are actually, it looks like they're going to be combined with county conventions. Perhaps a morning precinct caucus, afternoon county conventions. I'll have more information on that.
What does that mean?
That means if you want to be an active part of the Republican Party and its structure and its platform and, you know, that whole deal, that's coming up in January. We'll have more news on it, but I'm just giving you guys a heads up for those who are concerned about opening your homes or, you know, lots of meetings. You know, because a lot of the folks are elderly that, you know, stay involved in the precinct and county convention. So
interesting. Okay.
Oldham, anything else?
We'll have to think about that. No, that's about it. I'm pretty excited. Broken Arrow's standing strong.
Nice. That's great news.
Remember,
that's great news.
Everybody who's listening, all politics is local. Start, clean up your own neighborhood, your own house, your own neighborhood, your own community, and then move out. It will have an effect.
That's correct. And it's actually good news. We picked up the Senate's stronger. The House is stronger. Republicans on their way up. Constitutionalism is on their way up. Everything's looking up. David Van, Soonerpolitics.org. Check out everything you need to know about your finger on the pulse of state politics. Also, David Oldham, constitutionalgrounds.com. Go there to find out all things constitutional. I'm Tommy McKay, your verbal Viking, your plunderer of conversation right here at Tommy McKay on Facebook and Twitter. Every Monday night, I want to thank everybody for listening. We're going to send everybody out now.
Adios. See ya.
Good night.